This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Agun Erev Shabbos Rabbi, as we prepare for Parshas Beshalach, the Haftorah. In the final pasuk of the Haftorah, we're going to start with Kein Yavedu Chalayvecha Adonai V'Yai Habav Kitzeis Hashem Es B'Gvurasai V'Atishkoit Haaretz Arbaim Shana. So the pasuk says, so may all the enemies of God be destroyed, but those who love Hashem will be like the emergence of the sun in its glory. So here, the Haftorah, the Navi in Shoftim, in the Shiras Devorah, is telling us that those who love Hashem will be like the sun that comes out in its glory. What is this analogy? That those who love God will be like the sun emerging in its full glory. So it's a very interesting Gemara in Baba Basra, Daf Tezayin Amud Aleph. We're going to start in the middle of the Gemara on the second line. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai Omer, Even Toiva Hoysad Tzulia B'Tzavari Shel Avraham. A precious stone was suspended around the neck of Abraham. Avinu, our father. Shekol Choyle Haraya Oisai, any sick person who saw it, Miyad Misrape, would be healed immediately. So it says, Stam, it's a very odd picture. We picture Avraham Avinu like a big tzaddik, a big gadol. Now we're learning he wore a necklace. Okay? And around the necklace he had a precious jewel, which is somewhat of a...
called an amulet.
He had a stone, it says. And any sick person who saw it was healed immediately. Uvishash and Niftar Avraham Avinu min ha'olam, when Avraham Avinu died, when he passed on, Tala HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'galgal chama. God took the stone and he hung it on the sun. Of course, obviously. Amar Abaye, Hainu Damri Inchi, Idli Yaima Idli Ktsira. That's what people say when the sun comes out, people get cured. Because basically, it used to be sick people would look at the stone around Abraham's neck, but now that and anyone who was sick was cured. But now that the stone is around the sun, that's why the sun heals people. Because just like Avraham Avinu used to heal people, the sun used to heal people. So obviously this is a very difficult Gemara. Why did Avraham wear a necklace? Why did he have a stone around his neck? How were they healed? And why is it on the sun? So there's a Rashba brought in the Ein Yaakov. He says that it's well known that the Chachamim compare Chachma to Avonim Toivos Margolios, to jewels, to diamonds. And they call Chachma Divrei Chefetz. So when it says that Avram had an Even Toiv around his neck, you know what that means? He had Chachma in his knowledge, and it was Nidbak B'Sichlai. So when it says Avram Avinu had a emerald around his neck, it means he had tremendous Chachma. Now, why was this Chachma by his neck? Usually Chachma is in your mind. The answer is, it's not enough to have Chachma in your mind. It needs to be in your throat, through your diburim. When it says that Avraham Avinu had an Even Toiva, the Even Toiva refers to his Chachma around his neck, meaning he brought many people closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through his diburim. There were people who were ill. They were Choylei HaNefesh. And Avraham was makarev them. He taught about Emunah b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This was the Even Toiva that was around the neck of Avraham. Avraham Avinu brought people tachas kanfei Ashchina, like the pasuk says, "V'yes hanefesh asher asu b'charan." And now that we don't have an Avraham Avinu, how do we learn about HaKadosh Baruch Hu? How do we recognize Hashem in this world? When Avraham Avinu passed away, God took the stone. Meaning he took Yediyah by HaKadosh Baruch Hu and he put it on the sun. Nowadays, we have to study the incredible wisdom, the intricate wisdom in the physical universe, and through that we'll come to the level of understanding HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Avraham Avinu imparted to the world, says the Rashba. V'alzeh ba Reb Shimon. This is what Reb Shimon means. Margolis toiva tuli b'tzavarai. Meaning he was manhig, and he was margil, and he was mamshech, many talmidim, through his dibur. And this is what it means, kol choyle shaya royaba miyad nisrape. Because when he taught them these inyanim, he was megayer them. Like the pasuk says, v'yas hanefesh asher asu b'charan. From here we learn he was megayer them and he brought them tachas kanfei Shechina. And when he died, HaKadosh Baruch Hu took them and hung it around the sun. This is a remez that ki ba'oidoi b'chayim Lamad hu Azaria, v'hanimshachim acharav, derachim amitiyim. That when Avram was alive, he taught his descendants and his talmidim the true path. Once Avram Avinu died, there was nobody like him to teach this chachma. So God took it and He suspended it on the Gagal Chama. This way, when a person sees the movement of the celestial bodies and how perfectly intercalated they are, he will come to this realization and recognition of Mi Sha'amar V'Haya Ha'olam. Like the pasuk says, look at number 5 in Yeshaya, Su'u Einechem Uru'u Mi Bara Ela, it should say. Hamoitzi B'Mispar Tzva'am. The pasuk says, Su'u Einechem Uru'u Mi Bara Ela. Hamoitzi B'Mispar Tzva'am. Okay, so let us move on.
So therefore, we're to study science.
Yes. We have to have the right teacher. Okay. Now, the question is, what is the introduction of the Gemara? Because before Reb Shimon Yochai says an Even Toiva was suspended around the neck of Avram Avinu, it says Reb Lezer HaMoidoi Omer, it's Tagninos Haisa Beliba Shel Avram Avinu. Astrology was in the heart of Avram Avinu. Shekamachei Mizrach Amarav Mashkimin Lepischai, and all the kings of the east and the west would wake up early to study from Avram Avinu. What's that all about? Comes the Sefer Bina Le'itim. Who's the Bina Le'itim? Bina Le'itim is one of the greatest Svarim ever written of Sifrei Drush. It was written by a Gadol B'Yisrael, the author of the Gidulei Truma. His name is Rabbi Azaria Figo, one of the Italian Gedolim. And he wrote a Sefer of Drush upon which many later Svarim are based on. And he wants to know, what does it mean that Avram Avinu had astrology in his heart? What are all these details that Avram had in his heart? It should say Avram Avinu knew astrology. Well, says the Bina Le'itim like this. Avram Avinu demonstrated his perfect faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in great Ava. How? By trying to perfect the people of his generation, to improve as much as he could. What would bring them the greatest hatzlacha? And he wanted to make root in their hearts the truth of Hashgacha Pratis, and to cause anything that would attribute in their minds that the world runs naturally, to distance it from them. Not because Avram Avinu's ambition in life is to teach people Emunah B'Hakadosh Baruch Hu, that they shouldn't believe that this is a natural world. Therefore, Rabbi Lezer HaMoidoi says, at first, Adarabba, Avram Avinu, he was not foolish in the ways of science and nature. It's not that Avram Avinu didn't have an education and therefore he knew nothing better than God. No, just the opposite. The introduction is as follows. Astrology was in the heart of Avram Avinu. What does that mean? Avram Avinu was a great naturalist. He was a great scientist. He was Nisale al Kol Bnei Doiroi. He knew astrology and the movement of the constellations much better than anyone else. But because he realized that it's harmful to be proficient in this knowledge. Why? Because it could lead a person astray to forget about God and think that, the world has such precise rules, it operates through these worlds. Therefore, Avram Avinu hid science from people. It was believai. It was in his heart and he wouldn't speak about it. Because he felt it was harmful for people to know it. Why? Because then they're going to think that everything follows a certain natural order. Therefore, it was mipnei chasidusei lahalam inyanim elu, not to reveal them. And there were a lot of people who wanted to learn it from him, and they were the kings of the east and the west who came to study from Abraham Avinu. Sarim malchei eretz, because Avram knew that from science, yatzat sefa kfiras hashgacha, science leads to heresy. Again, this is not what I'm saying. This is what Rabbi Azaria Figo is saying, that Avraham held. V'zeh, this is what it means, it's stagninos hoisoloi la'avram belibai. Meaning that now, this doesn't mean the natural science, but at least the science of astrology. It was belibai. Not that he didn't know it, not that he didn't study it. He studied it, he knew it, he didn't teach it. He wouldn't notify, he wouldn't impart. To the extent that all the Malchei Mizrach Marav would wake up early to learn from him. Says Rabbi Azaria Figo, it says Malchei Mizrach Marav because all the Malchei Ha'olam, even the great Chachamim in the east and the west, which are the borders of the world, recognize Avram Avinu's proficiency in these areas. And now, based on that introduction, that Avram Avinu was very knowledgeable in the sciences, Rav Shimon Yochai says, instead of hiding science from people, he had a great margulis around his neck. What does this mean? Avram Avinu did not hide science from people. He had a stone around his neck. What does that mean? Avram Avinu said, yes, the world is wondrous, the world is natural, the world has incredible laws. But realize, this was not hidden in his heart. It was suspended around his neck. He said, you should know, whatever happens to us, whether it's good, whether it's bad, nothing occurs through astrology, but rather there is Ribbon Shalom on top of the chain, until the point where anyone who is a chayla, when they saw this stone, they were makir, they were misrape, meaning Avram Avinu said that anybody who has any illness, it's not caused from astrology, everything comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as a punishment for Avera, they would be healed because they stopped attributing their illness to the Maracha. And when Avram Avinu passed away, they took this stone and they were toilet on the Galgal Chama, meaning from that stone, they were able to see from the sun itself. Mimenu yavei lahakar hashgacha betuv ha'azbainus bekama pilei pla'im ha'mergashim mimenu.
How do you connect the stone to Kodesh Baruch Hu? It's a magical thing. Why does that connect to Kodesh Baruch Hu? Look at Shumai.
Again,
look at Shumai.
So back to the Rajba. The Rajba says it's a mashal. The Rajba says that the stone was the chachma of Avram Avinu that he was able to impart to the world that everything is from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, so now let's take this back. Look at number 7. This is another. What we just read in the Bina L'Itim was in Drush Yod Aleph, but the Bina L'Itim continues this in a later Drush, in his 75th Drush. Drush Ayin Hey. And he says a beautiful pshat, first in a pasuk in Koheles, and then in a pasuk in the end of this week's Haftorah. So says the Bina L'Itim, Ma Yisrain la'adam, what advantage is there for a person, b'chal amalai, sheyamal, and all the toil that he toils, tachas hashamesh, under the sun. Literally it means, of what advantage is all a person's efforts in this world under the sun? Of what advantage is it? Of what benefit is it? That's a simple meaning. However, the Bina L'Itim has an incredible pshat in this pasuk, and it's quoted. First, we have it in the Bina L'Itim here, and we also have it quoted in the Sefer Koichav Miyakov, the Dubna Magid's Perush on the Haftorah. First, the Bina L'Itim quotes the Rajba, that Avram Avinu, when it says that he had a stone, it means he had chachma, and it was around his neck, he imparted it to the world. And this chachma, when Avram Avinu passed away, now the only way to learn this chachma is to study what? The sun. Therefore comes Shlomo HaMelech. Ma Yisrain Hagadol v'Atzma Adam. What advantage is there in man? In Sheik B'chol Masha Amal, and everything that a person toils. You know what a person's amelus is? You know what value a person has? Tachas Hashamesh is if you take the place of the sun. That's what Shlomo HaMelech is saying. When Avram Avinu died, so there's nobody to teach Amunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu anymore. So what did Hashem do? He suspended it on the sun, meaning now who teaches Amunah? The sun. What is our avodah in this world? Tachas hashamesh. Be in place of the sun. Be in place of the sun. Take the job of the sun. In lieu of the sun. 1 second. The job of an Adam is to be Tachas hashamesh. Says the Bina L'Itim, incredible pshat. Ma Yisrain Hagadav Atzam Adam b'chol mashu amel. The answer is Yamal Tachas Hashamesh. Sheyahu Amel Umasasek b'makom. A person should be oisek instead of the sun, meaning that which the sun guides people to believe in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Yamal by Ha'adam has that tacht of a person should take the place of the sun. and bother himself and be matriach himself to speak to people, be madrich people, guide people, direct people, the same way that when Avram Avinu died, the son took the place of Avram Avinu, our job in this world is to take the place of the sun, to be tachas hashemesh, to teach the world about Amunah and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that we should be matriach, we should be amel, to go out, to speak, to talk to people, to talk to our family, to talk to our children, to talk to our friends, and show them that there's HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this world who is Raya, who gives schar v'oinesh. But based on that, the Bina Elitim says, then in that case, when we learn in this week's Haftorah, v'oyavav, those who love God, what are they like? Ketzeis Hashemesh b'gras. It's like the sun that goes out in its glory, meaning that those who love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way we see who they are is if they're able to go out and shine their light and teach the Emunah b'HaKadosh Baruch Hu, like the Shemesh, where they're being mekayim the advice of Shlomo, Sheyamoil Tachas HaShemesh, not under the sun, but in the place of the sun. Then they sort of are like Avram Avinu, who had this Even Toiva surrounding around their neck. Okay, Rabbi, so this is the pshat of the Bina Leitim based on the Rashba on this week's Haftorah.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.